Welcome back. Democrats suddenly have a sunnier outlook about their 2024 prospects in Florida after a pair of rulings from the state Supreme Court this week. The court allowed Florida's 6-week abortion ban to take effect in 30 days, but the court will also allow voters to have the final say on the matter in November with a proposed ballot amendment that would enshrine abortion protections in the state's constitution. With us now is Democrat Fentrice Driscoll. She is the minority leader in the Florida House of Representatives, and Minnie Timaraju is here with us in Washington, D.C., president of Reproductive Freedom for All. Welcome to you both.
Welcome to you both. Minnie, this was quite a week in Florida, and how do you assess the conversation around abortion IVF now in light of what we see the courts having done in Florida? Because I think a lot of people, quite honestly, just put it on the table, would have thought, oh, it's Florida, and this issue is not going to get on the ballot. Voters won't have a say here. The court said, no, this issue should be a part of the conversation. But you still have the before times where you have this limit, the 6-week limit.
Yeah,
so
it was sort of a schizophrenic decision by the court. On one hand, they were like, we're going to let this 6-week ban go through, which, as a reminder, is before most people know they're pregnant. Yep. So it's extreme. It's basically a total abortion ban. But we're going to kind of split the difference here and make sure the people get to vote. But what I will say is this, taking a step back, abortion rights activists in the state of Florida have been working on this initiative for over a year. Mm-hmm. And before anyone at the national level believed that Florida was winnable, they believed it because they were paying close attention to the other states where independents and Republicans were crossing over to support abortion rights. They knew that DeSantis overplayed his hand. They knew the legislature was extreme, and they believed that this could happen. So kudos to them first. But yes, now it does seem to make Florida more in play because the 6-week abortion ban is so extreme and the groundwork has been done. I think something like 15% of the signatures to qualify for that ballot initiative came from Republicans. 25% of them came from non-affiliated voters. So that work is important.
Quick follow-up on that. Will the organizers have a say in how the language on the ballot is set, or is that something that's going to be done by the court? Because that matters in terms of how voters process yes or no on the question.
I believe the court has a lot to do with it, and the decision indicates that. But I'd love to hear from our friend in the state who might know a little more about the details.
Yeah, Minority Leader Driscoll, I mean, please pick up where Michael Steele and Minnie left off. What is the language that will be on the ballot? And my second question is, what do you make of the national conversation now spotlighting Florida? Minnie's point about how local leaders have been at the forefront of this, and the subtext I read from that is that they should continue to be at the forefront of this. So what say you?
Yes, so the language has been set. That's what the court's ruling on Monday was about. And it's very simple language. It asks voters whether or not there should be limited government interference in these very personal medical decisions that are of the heart and the home. And so that's why I think we saw the crossover with the signing of the petitions. And so many Republicans and independents were willing to sign these petitions because it's not really a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. It's a human issue. It's a healthcare issue. And the organizers have been able to frame it as such, which matters. And then to your second point or your second question, Simone, about what do I make of the national conversation? I will tell you that I think they're right. I think Florida is in play now. Just the simple fact that this language is on the ballot is not enough to drive turnout. I want to be clear about that. But what it does is it gives us an opportunity to talk to voters clearly about issues that matter to them. In January, we had a special election here in Central Florida, and I was able to lead a team with the Florida House Democrats to flip a seat from red to blue in a special election. It's the first time that was done since 2018 in conjunction with the party and the Donor Alliance and the coalition groups. It was amazing. But the way we won that race was talking about abortion. It immediately disqualified the Republican candidate, but qualified our candidate because there's a clear distinction between who wants to protect your freedom and who wants to take it away. And we were able to win 70% of independent voters in that election by talking to them about the issues that matter to them, which are affordability. Florida's having an affordability crisis, and abortion.
Minnie, I want to play for you some sound from President Trump on abortion. A reporter asked him a question, and let's take a listen to his response.
What should we prepare for? Could that be a change in position?
No, not a change in position. It's going to be something that is very important. You know, you have to go with your heart. You have to go with your spirit. And it's going to be something that I don't think people would be overly surprised. But we also have to remember we have to win elections. It's very important. You have to win elections. Otherwise, you go back to where you were.
Okay, so can we just say that that was a word salad of absolute nothing?
You have to win elections.
I'll get to that point. It's going to be something that is very important, you know. You have to go with your heart. Well, Donald Trump, where is your heart on abortion? That's the question I would have as a follow-up. And then he ends it, Minnie, with you have to win elections. Otherwise, you go back to where you were. So you have to win elections tells me, are you lying now or are you going to lie later about your position on abortion? How do those who are advocating for reproductive health for women transfix the language of Trump so voters really understand what this man is telling them? I mean, he's basically going to lie to voters about what Republicans are going to do on this issue.
Right.
Because he's going to come and say, oh, no, we're going to, you know, we're not going to impose a national ban. We're going to do 16 weeks. When he knows that's not what his base wants. So how do the advocates help force that reconciliation between Trump and his base at the same time making it very clear this man's going to lie to you about what he's going to do or not do on abortion?
So the most effective thing that can be done, and I give a lot of credit to the Biden-Harris campaign for doing this, we saw ads that just rolled out, is play back his words. The most effective message is the one from Donald Trump's mouth where he brags about overturning Roe, takes a lot of gleeful credit for it, and the clip where he talks about punishing patients and doctors. Those are the two most effective messages with the electorate. And we assume as advocates that everybody knows this, but a lot of folks haven't dialed in yet. Right. So just hammering home Donald Trump, in his own words, is critical strategy number one. But number two, and this is our job as advocates, is to help credential the president and the vice president and to say, here are all the things the Biden-Harris administration have done, because that gets lost. So, for example, we have a Supreme Court oral argument in a couple of weeks that's about defending the Biden administration's effort to use regulations for emergency health care to protect women in states with bans. That is a big deal. We got to talk more about it and make sure folks understand it's not just Donald Trump is dangerous and a liar and he bragged about overturning Roe and will do it again through non-congressional means, but that Joe Biden supports you, Kamala Harris supports you, and they're your best line of not just defense, but going back to codifying a federal right in Roe.
Yeah. You know, it's super important that we're talking about all the efforts to protect access to abortion, but as you both know well, Minnie and Congresswoman Driscoll, Republicans are going after mifepristone, IVF, your ability to have a family, your ability to decide if you want to have kids. Do you both think that the pro-choice, pro-abortion, pro-reproductive rights movement is keeping up with those who are anti-family planning, anti all of these things? I think about how Republicans took over state legislatures over the course of 10 years and had this very deliberate strategy that Democrats missed and still suffer from.
Yeah.
Do you think that your folks nationally on the ground are matching what Republicans are doing in terms of how much they're focused on all of these different things?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the reproductive freedom movement, pro-choice movement, you know, pro-abortion access movement has been raising the alarm about this takeover of legislatures, pushing Democrats to take firmer positions on abortion access for decades. I think we saw a sea change in 2016 when the party platform actually changed to support many of these positions, like eliminating the Hyde Amendment, limitations on federal funding for access to abortion. But it's been a long time coming. What I will say is the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, the Democratic Governors Association, they're meeting right now. Democratic AGs have all taken really firm positions and really led the way in the states. And it's very, very important partnership for us now. And it's been critical in shifting this fight.
And to your point, why governors matter so much.
That's right.
Minority Leader Driscoll, we're going to give you the last word on this. I mean, you are in a place. Remember the last elections in Florida, folks? People wrote Florida off. They said Florida is unwinnable. But Democrats in the state, like yourself and Nikki Fried, the state party chair, have kept at it. And you talked about the gains and flipping a seat in the state legislature, not to mention flipping the seat in the mayor of Jacksonville. What is your message to folks going into, as they, we look forward to the summer and then the general election, the fall in November?
My message simply is that Florida is winnable. We've been building up momentum to this proof of concept, starting with that mayoral race and then the special election. And now having this ballot language in November is essential. It shows us that Democrats have a pathway to talk to the voters about what they want to talk about, which we know is essential to turnout. And I also say, look, Florida has 29 electoral votes. We need Florida. Saving our state actually helps to save our country, because we need a state as large as Florida to be able to flip blue and to help secure American democracy. I feel like this is no longer just about, making sure Democrats win. It is protecting our democracy. It is essential. And so I know that I'll be doing all I can on the ground in coalition with the state party and our donors and everyone to make sure that we make a strong showing for the Biden-Harris campaign and make sure that we're protecting every Floridian's freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.